All right. I think I am recording. I'm James Orr. We are going over house hacking versus Nomad tonight. Upcoming classes, let you know what's going on. So next Tuesday, Legacy Nomad overview. Legacy Nomad, for those that don't know, Legacy Nomad is for when parents or grandparents gift down payment money to their kids so that their kids can buy a house, move in, live there as an owner-occupant, stay there for a year, convert that property to a rental after living there for a year, and then repeat the process to acquire rental properties. So that's going to be all about that strategy. And you may be the parent or the grandparent, or you may be the child. So we'll talk about it from both angles that night, September 12th. That's a webinar. And then Brian is teaching CapEx, the silent killer. What's that going to be about? The Zika virus. That's what it's going to be about?
No, it's about capital expenses and buying cheaper properties that seem like they look good on paper, but really are not longer term. We'll talk about why.
Okay, cool. So that's going to be on next Wednesday, a week from tonight. And then we're going to go over the emergency plan workshop. How many people came to the emergency plan workshop we did, I don't know, a couple months ago? Was that any good? Kind of worth coming to? Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and do that. I'll kind of make some updates to some of the slides. So this will be the second time I presented it. I doubt between now and then I will have time to make the worksheets I will eventually make. But at some point in time, I'm going to make some worksheets where you can just fill them in and have those in your safe locked up, ready for someone else to come in and take over if you get hit by a bus. That's basically what it's about. What happens if you get hit by a bus? And then Brian is teaching a brand new class, The One Thing by Gary Keller. Are you like, is this story time? Are you reading the book to us, or what are you doing?
I hope. Chapter 1.
Chapter 1. That's probably true. I think it's like an 8-hour Audible book.
Really? On 2x speed. Oh yeah, I can do that. I can after like half an hour then. So. No, that's going to be basically much like the review of the Blue Book, Millionaire Real Estate Investor, that we haven't taught in a while either. I read this book, I don't know, probably 6 months ago now. So.
It was on a holiday, wasn't it? Didn't you read it on a plane?
Yeah, it seems like it.
You were going to a wedding or something, weren't you?
Texas? Was it really February? Jeez, I don't know.
That's 7 months ago.
Yeah, so I'll reread the book again and then kind of do an overview of what the book's about so that if you don't have time to read it, you can get it in 2 hours instead of 8.
Yeah, it's actually a really good book, and it's directly related to real estate stuff.
And goal setting and just focusing, being able to focus. I'm sure there'll be some slides with The Rock yelling focus.
That's good to know. All right, and then I'm teaching Analyzing Deals 301, Multifamily for Nomads. This is going to be how to analyze deals if you're a nomad moving into the property, living there for a year, when you're buying duplexes, triplexes, or fourplexes. It is a little bit different than when you do single-family home deal analysis, so I'll kind of go over the differences between that, and I'll show you how to actually use Brian's spreadsheet. You'll be able to download Brian's spreadsheet and use it to analyze your own deals as well, and that's going to be on Tuesday, September 26th. Any questions on upcoming classes? Are there any classes in particular you need right now? Like ones that we need to put on the calendar? Because I think I'm about to go ahead and start redoing the calendar out. Any classes in particular you're missing that you don't have?
Probably like seller.
We're not doing seller presentations. I don't think we'll ever do seller presentations again. That last recording will be the final one. So introductions. Who are you, and do you prefer house hacking or Nomad? Joe?
My name's Joe, and I would say I would probably prefer Nomad over house hacking just for fear of multiple people being in the same house that aren't related.
Okay. You know, the definition of house hacking would include duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. So it could be even moving into one of those too. It's not just roommates, which I found very odd, but it's all good. Thank you. Welcome. Hello.
Hi, I'm Anna Silva. I know you just defined house hacking, but I'm not sure I got it. So I'm
Okay.
gonna say I prefer Nomad.
Awesome. Thank you. Welcome. Yeah, make up your own definition. That's what we're going to do. I'll give you one tonight. Daniel.
My name's Daniel, and if I was single, I'd probably do some house hacking. However, I'm not, so Nomad.
Can you charge your spouse rent?
Good luck with that.
That won't work?
Not for very long.
I might try that, see how that works out for me.
She makes all the money.
Maybe she'll house hack for me. Maybe I'll pay her rent or something. See how that works. Elijah?
I'm Elijah. Not sure which one I'd really prefer yet. Finding what house hacking is really about.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thanks. Welcome. Hello.
Daryl Stolte. So, charging someone else rent to live with you, is that what part of that is?
House hacking. Yeah, getting roommates.
Our daughter is pretty close to that.
Your daughter is pretty close to that. That's right. We are doing that. I forgot about that. We have a son living at home. I am house hacking.
Pretty close. We had that discussion today. So we may be getting pretty
Really?
close to that.
Okay. That's pretty
I guess
interesting.
I prefer that.
There you go. We should talk. I have some strategies for the kids stuff. Yeah. Hello.
My name's Gillard, and I guess I'm not sure because I'm pretty brand new to all of these, but I think actually I don't have any kids.
Okay. So you're getting roommates and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool.
Unless Nomad, you can like throw like a brother or something like that.
You can. I've got clients that are putting their brothers in properties and charging their brothers rent. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks. Welcome. Hello.
Hi, so Quinn, and I'm.
Quinn with a K.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy spelling.
Never heard that.
Well, I mean,
She was like, yo, I'm out of here.
you don't see a lot of Quinns with the K. Have you ever met another Quinn with a K?
My wife.
Have you ever met another Quinn with a K? See? It's pretty unusual.
So I'm new to this as well, so I'm not sure what I would prefer.
Awesome. Thanks. Welcome. Hello.
Hi, my name's Eric. I would say house hacking and multifamily, so that way I can charge rent to the properties to pay for my own
Sure.
living quarters.
Yeah. I'll show you an example tonight of one that's actually available right now. That's awesome. Cool. Allison.
Hi, I'm Allison, and from what I know about those, with my very limited knowledge, I think I would prefer Nomad.
Okay. Don't you have a roommate right now?
Yeah, but they're paying rent to my mom.
Ah, okay. That makes more sense.
I'm living there for free. Every rent's going to my mom. I'm just charging utilities.
Do you tell them that your mom's the owner, or you tell them that you're?
Yeah, my roommates know that my mom's the owner because
Okay.
I got my roommates when my mom bought the house.
Okay. Cool. Thanks. Welcome. Tammy.
I'm Tammy, and I would say with me, Nomad, for my kids, I think they should house hack and have roommates and, keep it as cash flow positive as possible.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They're young and single, so why not?
Yeah, and we are. I forgot this. We are house hacking with our son.
Not really. He's meeting all his standards, so he's not paying rent.
That's right. He's on rent reprieve.
Yeah. He's in school and has a job.
Yeah. We sort of use it as encourage. Oh, I shouldn't say this on recording. We encourage him to do certain activities, and then if he's doing those things, then rent goes away. So.
He's not quite 19 though. It
Yeah.
may be different when he's like 22 or 23 and college is done.
That's true. That might be very different. So awesome. Thank you. Pamela?
Hi, I'm Pamela, and I have no idea.
You have no idea? Okay, that's fair. It's before the class, so you probably don't even know what they are yet. Awesome. Thanks. Welcome.
My name's Melissa, and I probably do house hacking.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks. Welcome. Hello.
Hello. My name's Brian. I don't prefer either.
What?
They're just buying rentals, not having to live in them. I already live in the house that I would like to stay in.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you. Welcome.
I was joking with this, Brian, that I was C, none of the above. My name's Brendan Foster, a long-term buy and hold investor, and neither strategy fits into my portfolio right now, but maybe in 8 years when my son graduates.
Yes. When you start having college kids or post-college kids living at home, then you may change to house hacking.
When the kids are old enough, then sure.
Yeah.
Till
Totally.
then,
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Welcome. Hello.
Hi, I am Brian, and 8 to 5, I'm an insurance agent specializing in homeowners and landlord policies. And I'm going to go off menu as well and say I've done kind of both together.
Yeah. We're talking about that tonight, too.
So I think the second property I bought was a multi-unit, and I lived in one of the units and rented the other 3 out,
Mm-hmm.
and then moved on from there.
Yeah. Did you have roommates or just the other unit?
Just the other units.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Did I miss anybody? Got everyone? All right, good. So we're going to do house hacking versus nomad. So what is house hacking? buy a property and live in part of it and rent out the other parts. So you could do duplexes, 2 units, triplexes, 3 units, 4plexes. You could also do it with single-family homes where you rent bedrooms, as an example. Another thing is you could do properties with acreage where you can rent RV space, etc. So I just got an email right before class, about an hour before class, of somebody that actually was trying to reach out to the people that run this group, which is me, and say, we have this service where we rent people's garages or storage spaces, and there's kind of like a business where they kind of broker that to other people. So you could go buy a property that has RV space or an extra 3-car garage in the back, and you decide to rent out that separately. Technically, that would be house hacking. So it may not even be that someone lives in the property. It could just be renting off pieces of the property that you don't need yourself to do that. And you can combine these too. So you could get a duplex, triplex, or 4plex and have space for RVs, or buy a 4plex, rent out 3 of the units, and also have roommates in the unit that you're living in. So you can combine those as well. So that's what house hacking is. What Nomad is you buy a home as an owner-occupant. So you have to get owner-occupant financing. You're going to live in the property. You're going to move in. And one of the reasons we do that is so you can get minimal down payment. You can do the first one with 0% down USDA loan. There's a 0% down VA loan if you have that. There's also a 1% down owner-occupant conventional financing loan. The second and third one, you can usually do 3% down. And then after that, they're 5% down for the ones beyond that, up to 10. And so basically, you buy a home as an owner-occupant, you move in, you live there for a year. And this is a requirement of the lender. The lenders came back and said to us, you don't need to live there anymore. You can live there for 6 months. Then we would change the rules. We would say you only need to live there for 6 months. But you're going to sign a form at closing that says you're agreeing as an owner-occupant to live in the property for a year. And so you're agreeing to do that. Then toward the end of the year, you buy a new home and you convert the previous one to a rental. So you put tenants in the last one, you move out and you buy a new house, and you repeat this process until you get the number of rental properties that you want. That's what Nomad is. You're moving sort of like cave to cave to find rental properties that you want to acquire, and you're able to do it with little or nothing down and just kind of sequentially buy properties and get rental properties. Does that make sense, everybody? Everyone understand the basic definitions? Because if you don't understand these, the rest of the presentation tonight is going to be kind of hard. Yeah?
Okay, then, yeah, I thought house hacking is when you do this, oh, I'm sorry. So Nomad, you live there without any rent, and then you leave.
That's right. You don't have to have roommates during that first year.
Okay.
So for example, Tammy and I could move house to house and not rent out other bedrooms, and that would still be considered the Nomad model.
They're very close.
Yeah, they're close. And sometimes there's overlap, because I've got a client, I'm going to use an example later, that does both. They do like a sequential house hacking where they move in, they get roommates, the roommates actually provide part of their down payment, then they, after a year, they move to the next property, they bring their roommates with them, or they add another roommate to the one they're leaving, and they get 2 new roommates, and they kind of complete the process and keep going. So house hacking is you're living with people. The Nomad one is you're just buying a new house every year. That's a simple way of doing it.
House hacking, you're not moving.
You don't have to. You can house hack and just do one property. You don't have to buy an additional property. House hacking, by the definition that I'm finding online, is it could be just one property you buy and you get roommates to pay for your housing costs. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Any other questions? Awesome. All right, so why do it? So Nomad allows you to acquire a portfolio of rental properties over a period of time that eventually will create passive income. So you don't, a lot of times when we're buying Nomad properties, we're putting very little down, especially in this market, we're not getting significant positive cash flow. In many ways, if we're break even, that's amazing, okay? So sometimes we're actually getting break even cash flow, but eventually they provide passive rental income with little or nothing down. The plain vanilla Nomad that we teach, we've taught a lot of classes on plain vanilla Nomad, I'm not gonna reteach that tonight, but the plain vanilla Nomad model has you acquiring 10 houses over 10 years. You buy 1 house a year, you move in, you kind of convert them to rentals, you repeat the process. You get 10 houses over 10 years, and according to that model, in year 40, so if you're 20 years old now, when you're 60 years old, you'll have $12 million in cash and equity. So you'll have that much built up in equity in the properties and cash flow that you've collected over that period of time. And $418,000 per year in passive cash flow after expenses in year 40 as well. So that's the model. Why would you want to go through the hassle of moving into your property, living there for a year, moving out, putting tenants in there, and repeating the process? It's so that you can get $12 million in cash flow and equity and almost $500,000 in cash flow. That's the reason why. That's why it's worthwhile. So I'm going to show you a chart in the next slide where I go through some of these numbers. House hacking allows you to reduce your housing expenses and or have your roommate contribute to your next down payment or retirement account. So if you're house hacking, you can move into a property, you can get 1, 2, 3, 4 roommates, and your roommates could contribute to pay some or all of your mortgage. So if your mortgage payment was going to be $1,500 a month and you got 2 roommates that were each going to do $600 a month, you really are only going to pay $300 a month to live in that property. The $1,500 you were going to pay, you could take that difference and stock it away into a retirement account, so you could actually buffer your retirement account, or you could live in a really nice house for $300 a month if you're willing to have roommates. Okay? Then you could use that money to save up for another down payment, or you could put it in a retirement account. I want to tell a story about this. So sometimes when I tell people, I don't know, it's a little bit of an ego trip. I don't know if I want to live with roommates. So I actually was in the Navy, and Tammy was quick to point out that I never had to hot rack myself. But in the Navy, there's this practice called hot racking. How many people know what hot racking is? Okay, so in the Navy, sometimes on ships, there are more sailors on board than there are beds. And so they will sleep in shifts. And so basically, one person will sleep from 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock in the afternoon or wherever their shift is over for the day thing, they're working at night. And they will sleep during that time. Then they get up. They make their bed, or their other sailor comes in and makes the bed, and they actually go, and the next person sleeps in that same exact bed for the next 8 hours. And they rotate back and forth. Okay? So that's what hot racking is. So in the military, the people that we're paying to serve in the military, they are voluntarily doing this. So if it's not above them, the people that are providing that service for, maybe you would consider getting a roommate. Not necessarily hot racking, although that could be a way to boost your income on your property. If you're willing to rent out your bed by the 12-hour period or 8-hour period, you could do that. But no, most of the time, we're actually going to just get roommates.
That's a whole other
Yeah, isn't that a different
night and day workers have to live in the same house but never see each other.
business model?
This is like, well, I mean, it formally meets the definition of house hacking, so sort of. But yes, I agree. It is a different business model. All right. Here we go. Average U.S. household spends 19.2% on shelter. So according to I think it's the U.S. Census, they actually went and they did some polls as to how much the typical U.S. household spends on shelter. Almost 20% of the money you make actually goes to shelter. So if you can get someone to come in and pay half of this or 3/4 of it and have some roommates, might not be a bad thing to do. You could actually take that money and save for retirement or use it as down payments for future houses. Any questions on this? Why we're doing it? Yeah. It seems that way because we were talking about, there's an article in the Colorado one recently where they were saying that the cost of living, it was like something crazy, like 30-something%. Do you remember what the article was?
Yeah, the problem is that they're not including students still, right? And so every article the Colorado one publishes is all not the full story, right? They're saying, oh, for the average population, this is 33.3% of what you make now barely gets you the house.
So they are including students or they're not?
They're not including the fact that there are 30+ thousand people who make nothing in this.
So they're using that number as part of the income?
They're extrapolating. They're saying, oh, these people make nothing, and so you need to make more. They're spreading the income from 120,000 people up to 150,000.
Yeah. There's still quite a bit of people that are being pushed up against that housing limit. I'm going to show some actual housing numbers, like actual rents, and they're much higher than I remember them being a year ago for some stuff. And so there's definitely people that are being pushed on rents. So around here, yeah, it's probably a little bit higher, right? And then when you qualify for a loan, I think they use a much higher ratio. You can go up to 45% total debt to income ratio on some of these. Actually, it's more than that now. It's like 50. So
It depends on the front side, back side.
yeah. So yes, I think it is higher for a lot of people around here for being able to do that. So you can definitely offset it. Any other questions on this? Do I get to separate you two? All right, cool. So here's the slide I was talking about before when I mentioned this $12 million in cash flow and equity and $418 per year in cash flow. This is a chart of a typical Nomad presentation that we're not doing tonight, where I walk through the numbers for doing Nomad in detail. And you can see basically this is year 1 all the way through to year 40. And this is the 0 line. So this is where $0. Each year we're acquiring a new property until we get to year 10. In year 10, we've acquired 10 properties, 1 per year. We're doing minimal down. In this model, I think I do 5% down for each, but you really could do 0%, 3%, 3%, 5%, 5%, 5%, all the way up to 5% through here. And so in year 10, we have 10 properties. And at that point, we're just renting them all. We're renting all 10 properties and growing them from here. And so this is the equity. The blue line is how much equity you have. And so basically the equity is 7.9 million by the time you get to year 40. And the cash flow on this is about 4.3675. I think that's in year 39 because I think it's like 4 point something higher than that, 4.5 in year 40. So between the two of them, you're actually getting $8 million in equity and about $4.5 million. I'm sorry, $4.3 million in cash flow from the whole point. So it's not it's 415 per year, 418 per year rather. And this is the total amount of cash flow you've accumulated up to this point for all these years. Okay, so you have between cash flow and equity by year 40, you have a total of 12.5 million plus a little bit. Anyone have any questions on that? Sweet. All right, so looking for unicorns in Horsetooth Mountain Park. So basically, this idea of house hacking and the examples they use online.
I think I might have started. I think I might have seen a unicorn, but I'm not sure.
What happened?
It's like the
What?
rarely seen thing. That's so bad.
So when I was doing some research on what house hacking was from the Bigger Pockets website, I came across an article. It's basically the link to it's right down here. But I'm going to read it to you because I want to talk to you about how uncommon what they're talking about online is around here. And one of the reasons why I want to do this, I want to show you what is normal in our market versus what's normal in a lot of other markets. So let's take a look. So they said, this is a quote from the website, because Tammy was trying to correct the grammar and said, hey, you got all sorts of grammar issues. I'm like, that's not me. You gotta leave that. So you find a fourplex for sale for $200,000. How many people think you can find a lot of fourplexes for sale around here for $400,000 or for $200,000? Yeah, not a lot. We're going to get to there in a minute. Where each unit would rent out for $800 per month. Is it unrealistic to think you could rent out a unit around here, one side of a fourplex or something like that for $800 a month? Yeah, I think you could do it, right? Even some of the low-end stuff is probably $800 a month at this point. Wouldn't you? Everyone agree? Okay. So I think the $800 per month is fine. If you rented out 3 of the units, if you rented 3 of the units out, the total income would be $2,400 per month. 3 times 8, 24. Divide that in half, and you are left with $1,200 per month. So they actually discuss how they calculate what your expenses should be on your property is. They basically take the total amount of rent you're getting, and they divide by half. And that should be, half of it should be your expenses, not including your mortgage. Does that work around here?
Expenses or mortgage side?
Expenses.
Yeah.
You think it does?
It's in the spreadsheet.
The ratio?
Yeah. And if you're over 50, you probably shouldn't buy it.
I think it's better than that around here.
Yes.
Yes.
But 50 is a very conservative estimate.
High number.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
I think your expenses end up being about 35 to 40.
That's more what I was thinking. Yes.
Yeah, 50%, if you assume it's that, you'll probably come out with it.
Yeah, which is not realistic right here. We're not hitting 50% in most cases. All right, so basically divide that in half, and you're left with $1,200 per month to pay the mortgage. A loan on $150,000, and here's the really interesting part, because you don't pay full price, and then you put down something for a down payment. So basically, you went from a $200,000 fourplex, and they're saying you're getting it at 25% off. Is that realistic around here in our market? Even then, we're not seeing 25% off in most cases. Okay? So basically, they're saying you're getting almost a 25% discount, and then you're getting a loan at 4% for 30 years. Are we able to get loans for 4% around here? Depends on the loan. If you're doing conventional financing, maybe not. If you're doing VA, probably. If you're doing FHA, with PMI, it might be over that. Okay, and I'll talk about that a little bit. So for 40 years, for 4% for 30 years is about $700 per month, which means you could get paid $500 per month to live for free. This would be a killer deal. Yeah, I agree it would be a killer deal. If we could find those types of deals, that would be freaking amazing. Okay? So questions we asked is, can you find fourplexes for $200? I'm going to go into a lot of detail on that. Can you rent each out for $800? Yes, in our market, I think you can. And can you get it for a $50K discount? The answer is probably not. And we did a whole class on lowball offers and how many offers got accepted at what discount. And so based on that data, no. It's really, really unlikely, especially on fourplexes, threeplexes, and duplexes. Okay?
You could alter that to be
Oh, I'm going to go in an example. I'm going to do an example of a real fourplex. I'm going to get there. Yeah, but you're not going to find numbers quite like this. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So this is a chart showing fourplexes in Fort Collins going all the way back to 1998 or something like that, and what they sold for on a per unit basis. So the units over there, when we had a $200,000 fourplex, were $50,000. So the line we're trying to hit, if we are able to do one in Fort Collins, is we're trying to find numbers that are below this line. Okay? Let me explain to you what's going on in this chart. Each one of these little blue squares that no one in the back row can see is a transaction, a fourplex that's sold in Fort Collins. It shows the price per unit that it's sold for over here and the year that it's sold for right here. The lines are going to show you the averages. The red line is the average of the ones that didn't sell. The blue line is the average of the ones that did sell, or I guess I should say median, because they're really medians, they're not averages. And then each one of the dots shows you a transaction. So looking back, this is 2017. In 2017, the transactions we've seen for fourplexes in Fort Collins, the low one we've seen is about, I don't know, $120,000 per unit. And in order to make the numbers that they had before work, it had to have been $50,000 per unit. So we're significantly over that. So at what point could we have bought a $50,000 per unit fourplex in Fort Collins? Let's time travel back and figure that out. 2017, no. 2016, no. 2015, no. 2014, no. 2013, no. 2012, no. 2011, no. Wait a minute. In 2010, there was a single transaction where you could have bought a fourplex in Fort Collins and got it for less than $50,000 a unit. And I looked it up, and it was pretty crappy. In case you wanted to know. What's that? As you might expect, right? And then basically 2009, no. And 2008, there was a single one that was just above 50,000. So if you squint really hard, it was right there. But then you have to go all the way back to 2002 to even see another one. So we're not talking about, oh, there's 10 a year or 10 a month. It's like there may be 5 going back 20 years. Not a lot in Fort Collins. Okay? So those numbers are not realistic. But I'm going to go into what numbers look like for doing this tonight. I'll show you actual ones. Similar thing in Loveland, because you think to yourself, okay, Fort Collins, James, yeah, I get it. You're not going to be able to find a fourplex in Fort Collins to make that work. What about Loveland? Can we make this work in Loveland? Well, here's Loveland this year. Loveland fourplexes only. Ones that sold this year, looks like the cheapest one that sold this year was probably in that $120,000-ish range per unit. So $480,000 for a fourplex. And you can kind of see here, the last time it was at about $50,000 was this one was just over $50,000 in 2012. So 4 years ago or so, 5 years ago or so, there was one, and that's really not many. And then it looks like over here there may have been one in 2007, and then going all the way back in 2002 there were 1 or 2 that happened that are sort of around there, and then a couple actually in 1999 and 1998. Okay, so there's not a lot in Loveland. One thing I want to point out about this slide, which we're going to cover later, is I want you to note where $140,000 per unit is. Because later on I'm going to show you a property that is for sale in Loveland, a fourplex, that is being sold right now. You could go buy it, you can go buy it tomorrow. It's being sold for $140,000 per unit. So $140,000 per unit is right about here. There are fourplexes in Loveland that sold for more than that this year. There's ones that sold for, I don't know, 160 or 170 per unit. Last year there was one that sold for 200 and something thousand per unit. But here's about where 140 is. And so you're paying toward the top of the market, maybe not the very top of the market, but it is definitely not cheaper. But you can also see the trend. We've seen a pretty dramatic uptick in the last 3 or 4 years on fourplexes in Loveland as well. Okay? So anyone own a fourplex in Loveland, you should be pretty excited because your property value is going up. All right, any questions on Loveland? All right. All right, James. Fort Collins, yep, hard to buy in. Loveland, really hard to buy in. What about Windsor? I'm going to kind of just drive west till I qualify. I'm going to find something in Windsor. Drive east till I qualify. Yeah, got to figure out northeast. Sort of know where Windsor is. Yes. All right, so Windsor, though, you kind of drive east till you qualify. I'm going to try to find one of these fourplexes in Windsor. There's a reason this chart looks like crazy lines with not a lot of dots. That's because there are not a lot of fourplexes in Windsor that have sold. Okay? So of the transactions we've had, this was $81,250 per unit, this was $53,750 per unit, and this was $66,250 per unit. And that's only going back to 2005. Why don't I show you properties from before 2005? Because there were none. So there's not a lot in Windsor. Okay? So if you think I'm going to go to Windsor and buy them, probably not happening. There is good news though. Greeley. So this is the data for Greeley for fourplexes. There are quite a few. And there are quite a few below 50,000. The 50,000 line right here per unit, that's this line. So there are quite a few transactions where you could still do this in G-Town. If you wanted to go buy a fourplex in G-Town, there were some available. You could buy them for less than 200,000, but I will tell you, having seen quite a few of them, they're pretty rough. They're definitely pretty rough. In fact, wasn't there there's a duplex? What was the duplex that our client didn't bid quite high enough? What did that close for? It was like 275, right? Yeah. So it was 275 for a duplex in Greeley, almost $135,000 per unit. Okay, so there are some stuff, and that was a nice duplex, but there's some stuff out here that's not the most amazing condition. But you can make these numbers work in Greeley. Any questions on that?
If you're willing to go higher than fourplex, which I know doesn't correlate to Nomad or house hacking loan-wise, but you can get the price per unit really down still significantly, I think, in the 50 to 70 range.
Oh, there's ones that are even fourplexes below 50. There's a whole bunch. Anything below where my hand is.
Yes, but what you just said is they're crappy. And I'm saying at a higher.
Yeah, but even some of the stuff that you're talking about, you do need to rehab it. It's not like pimped out and you're getting it for less than 50 in most cases. You got to go and you got to cash flow, repair it, and do upgrades between tenants and stuff like that. You're not getting something that's turnkey, really, really, really nice for less than 50 in most cases. Yeah. Right. Yes, I agree with that. Okay. Any questions on the fourplexes? Wellington, I just threw it in there because it was funny. There's not a lot going on in Wellington, and they're pretty expensive. There was one back in 2007 that was less than 50K. Here's the 50K line. But there really aren't a lot to even talk about, and they're pretty high. Okay. I did add in a chart showing you, because you're like, well, that's fourplexes. Are there any duplexes or triplexes where I could do this with as well? And so I showed you a chart of duplexes, triplexes, or fourplexes. And the 50,000 line is hard to see. This is the 200,000 line. So there are some that probably come down here and touch, but not quite the 50,000 point. So right here, this is probably about the halfway between point. That's about 100K. So most of the stuff selling per unit in Fort Collins at about 100K. And we probably haven't gotten down to 50 until, I don't know, probably was that transaction we had before in 2010 or whatever it was. Well, if they were, we can go, I actually have the chart for duplex, we can go pull it up. But if you were getting one for 100,000 per unit, which you haven't been able to find really in Fort Collins, that would be here because it would be per unit pricing. So that's 100,000 per unit. So if it were here, it'd be 200,000 per unit. So for a duplex, it'd be 400K. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
I understood. I just said for $200,000 for a duplex, it was probably pretty crappy.
Oh, I agree. Yes, I agree. And this is duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. I just divided by however units there were in order to get a per unit basis. So this could have been, it could have been a fourplex or a threeplex. I don't know if it was a duplex specifically. Any questions?
Did you happen to look at that dot at the 650K per unit?
No, it was probably something crazy though. Or it could have been missed data. Yeah, it's possible too. The data from Iris, the public record. It's the multiple listing service here is where I got it from. Then I compiled the charts. Yeah. Yep. All right. Any questions on this? Helpful stuff to kind of give you some ideas of what's available, what's not available? Okay, cool. So let's take a look at an actual one, what you're much more likely to find. Not a unicorn, but something that you can actually buy today in Loveland. So Loveland right now, there's a fourplex for sale. I saw it this afternoon, so I actually can tell you the condition. You can find deals with better numbers in Greeley and probably worse ones in Fort Collins, ones with worse numbers. So the price right now is $560K for 4 units. That's $140,000 per unit. The financing options, to kind of go over how you could finance this, you could do traditional conventional financing, 25% down for a multifamily property. You don't have to live in it. That's what this traditional conventional is. So 25% down payment, interest rate of 4.625, and that's based on the interest rate a client of mine used to close on a fourplex 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. So it's relatively current, not exactly today's rates, but very, very close, and that's an interest rate of 4.625. Now, do you have PMI when you buy a property, you put 25% down to buy a fourplex? Anyone know what PMI is? Private mortgage insurance. So private mortgage insurance is typically when you put less than 20% down on a property. So since we're putting 25% down, do we have PMI on this loan? No, that's why it says no PMI, okay? So no private mortgage insurance on that one. What about this FHA owner-occupant loan? So FHA owner-occupant, it's a loan you can get where you move into the property. It's usually 3.5% down or more. And you can put 3.5% down. You could buy a duplex. You buy a single-family home. You buy a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex. And so you could use it to buy this particular fourplex. You would have to live in one of the units. That is a requirement of the FHA loan. You cannot just buy it and actually not live in one of the units. Okay? What's that? You have to live in the property for a year. Yep. So FHA owner-occupant, 3.5% down. The interest rate on that one, as of yesterday when I made the presentation, was 3.75 plus FHA has PMI. And it's a monthly PMI payment. There's an upfront one as well, but there's also a monthly component. And so the monthly component is 0.85% of the balance of the loan each year. And so really your interest rate's not 3.75, it's 3.75 plus 0.85. So it's 4.6 or whatever it works out to be, is really what it comes down to for FHA financing. Okay? VA owner-occupant, nothing down. VAs are for people that are veterans. Thank you for your service. Those are people that have qualified for the VA type financing, and VA is nothing down. So you can get a loan with nothing down if you're a VA, if you're a veteran, and you can buy single-family homes, duplexes, triplexes, or fourplexes, and so that's one of the ones you can do. The interest rate that I had from the quote on the website yesterday was 3.75. Someone in this room got a quote recently for something a little lower than that. Anyone want to volunteer that information? For their VA loan? Anyone? Anyone want to volunteer what their rate was? No one? Okay. So anyway, the interest rate was 3.75. I had a client close on a VA loan today, and they actually got 3.25. So it's a little bit better than that. So 3.75, 3.25, somewhere around there is what you're getting for VA loans. So these are the three different financing options we have for doing this. Let's take a look at what it looks like. So basically you buy this fourplex, you decide you're going to move into one of the units, you're going to rent out the other 3 units. The other 3 units are renting right now for $1,100. I think that was the number, right? It's $1,100 per month per unit, or $3,300 total. You're living in the 4th one at a discount without roommates. Okay, let's take a look at what that would be. How much of a discount you get living in the property because you got income coming in, and so you're not paying the whole cost of the mortgage yourself, you're getting someone else to pay part of it. How much discount do you get? If you had put 25% down, you're getting paid $281 per month to live there. So you get to go buy this $560,000 duplex or fourplex, and you're getting paid $281 per month to live there. If you did 3.5% down with PMI, your payment would be $330 per month. So the difference, factoring in that you're going to have 3% vacancy, 12% for maintenance, and you're acting as the property manager, you're going to actually have to pay $330 per month out of your own pocket to live in this unit, the 4th unit. Okay? And then the last one, the VA loan with no PMI, your payment would be $153 a month. Okay? And if we have time at the end, I have Brian's deal analysis spreadsheet with these numbers pre-plugged in if you want to see the actual numbers. Or each of these ones is a 2-bedroom. You could actually move into one of the units and get a roommate for the other one. And what do you think you could rent a bedroom in a, townhome style duplex? What do you think you could rent a bedroom for in Loveland? I think $600 is really reasonable. So I think $600 for a bedroom. I think you could do that all day long. And so you're really living rent-free no matter which one of the loan programs you do if you have a roommate. So you really could buy this fourplex, rent out 3 of the units, get a roommate for 1, and actually have no housing costs. And you could do that in today's market here in Fort Collins, here in northern Colorado, not Fort Collins, with a property that is currently for sale. And this is not an exceptional property in my mind, right? Because we saw that 140 was not like at the very, very low end of stuff. We're seeing ones there. Yeah?
How do you figure out rent? Because I know they're on Zillow and all those sites, but
That's right.
How do you figure out what it would rent for?
Yeah, so you have to do rent comps, which looking things up on Craigslist and Zillow and stuff like that and seeing what similar ones are being rented for. You really don't know what they end up renting for because they just come down, but you could see that it was marketed for $1,200. It was up for 3 days. It's gone now. It's probably pretty close to $1,200. Maybe it was $1,150. Maybe it was $1,250 if they had a whole bunch of people applying and they had pets or something like that, but it's probably pretty close. So you do that. There are people that poll the apartments, and I have some data on apartment numbers. I'll show you here in a second. That will give you numbers for apartments, but apartments are not single-family homes, and so it's sometimes hard to get that data.
Yeah, Zillow's rent estimates are not great.
I agree.
They're okay, but like if you look at the map view on Craigslist and find here's the property I'm thinking about buying, and you look at the surrounding kind of 1 mile radius and look for properties that are similar and what they're listed for to be rented at, that's probably the most effective way, other than calling the property manager that you're thinking about hiring and saying, what do you think this would rent? But you can only do that so many times without actually hiring the property manager.
Yeah, before they get pissed off at you.
Yeah, eventually they're going to be like, you're not, so you didn't buy it, I get it, but if you buy it and now we're not managing it, eventually.
Yeah. And it's a small town. To think that you're going to be able to do that with impunity it's not a good idea. I would definitely not do it. All right, cool. Any questions on this? You see how you could basically do it. You can get paid if you're doing 25% down, or if you're willing to get roommates, you'll do this, or you have a highly subsidized rent for living in this thing. Now, what might it cost you to go rent a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath property in Loveland? Yeah, $1,100, $1,200, something like that. Yeah. So basically, instead of paying $1,100 to rent this, you only have to pay $330 or $153. And this does take into account maintenance on the property and vacancy, not property management. You're managing it yourself.
You could actually hire a property manager if you had a roommate still and pretty much break even.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Now you don't even have to deal with anything with your roommate.
Now it's free.
Is this under contract yet?
Mm-mm.
That's weird.
It's not even hit the market. Technically, it was a pre-listing deal. So, all right, cool. It's coming on the market, I think, tomorrow. So continuing on, property. So what else do you get from doing this? If you're able to kind of break even with the income on the property, or get paid a little bit depending on how you structure it, or you have to pay a smaller amount, what else do you get? Well, if you bought a $560,000 property, and if properties in Loveland appreciate at 3% per year, which lately it's been a lot more than that, but over a very long period of time, historically, properties in Loveland have appreciated about 3% a year. So if it's at 3% appreciation per year, that's about $16,000 in appreciation. I've rounded. And so that's one of the things you'd get by owning the property. Plus, depending on which of the loans you looked at, how much you pay down on the debt, because you pay down more on the one you put 0% down on than you do the one on the 25% down, you get somewhere between $6,000 and $10,000 per year in pay down on the loan in the first year. And that goes up over time. It increases each year. And then you get some tax benefits. And the tax benefits of owning the property, you'll be able to get additional cash flow because you'll end up paying less in taxes, and that actually means more cash in your pocket at the end of the year. Okay? Sequential house hacking, the idea of moving into a property, getting roommates, then after living there for a year or two or whatever it is, buying another property and repeating the process. Sequential house hacking is a variation of Nomad. And so some people have hinted already that really you can do both. You can house hack and have roommates, but do the Nomad model where you're buying a new property every year and continue doing that. So we talk about house hacking as a way to come up with down payments, improve cash flow, and reduce your housing expenses. And so I want to talk to you about an example from a client of mine. So here's an actual client of mine who's doing this. This is what she did. She basically bought a duplex in Evans with 3.5% down. She got an FHA loan, moved into one of the sides, rented out the other side, and I actually think she had a roommate, but I'm not going to complicate it anymore. She had like a live-in boyfriend who helped pay for some stuff, but it doesn't really matter. Lived in one side, rented out the other while saving 5% down for the next property. So she did that a few years ago. Then, after a year of living in that property, she bought a single-family home in Greeley with 5% down payment. Happened to be new construction. She bought the property, got 2 roommates to rent out 2 of the bedrooms, and they each paid her about $650 per month, and that almost paid her entire mortgage. So she was almost living in the brand new house completely free. And she had put 5% down that she had saved up from here. So what she saves, this basically not paying the $650 per month for 2, her mortgage on that, saves what she could have been paying for 5% down payment on her next property. So the way to think about it is this. Imagine she's willing to pay her normal mortgage, But now she has $650 times 2, $1,300 a month coming in from her roommates. She could take that $1,300 a month coming in, put it into a savings account, save it up for the year, and I think that's like 13 times 12. What's that, Brian? It's like 15,000, something like that? Somewhere around 15,000. So she'll have $15,000 a year that she's collected. If she's going to go buy another $300,000 property with 5% down, that is enough from the roommates to pay for the down payment on the next property. Okay? Or you could look at it as the roommates are paying the mortgage, and the mortgage she's not paying, she could actually stick that money aside in a savings account. Either way you want to look at it, it's the same thing. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Did I confuse somebody? Okay. So rents out both sides of the duplex for about break even. So the duplex she moved out of, she kept it, and she rents those out. It covers the mortgage on her property, plus a little bit more and right now, but it didn't at the time. At the time, it was about break even. So that's doing a little bit better. And so she break even on that. She got the 2 roommates here. Then once she had this 5% saved up, she went and bought another single family home property, this time in Evans with 5% down. She got 2 roommates this time. Turned out to be a slightly different property. This property has a really nice like basement sort of suite. It's got a living room area with, I think there's a fireplace down there. There's a bathroom downstairs, and there's a nice big bedroom and a big storage area. And so basically she rents out the basement for a little bit more. She lives in one of the upstairs bedrooms, a 3-bedroom place. So she got one where the downstairs basement person's paying $700 and the upstairs person's paying $600. She's living in the 3rd bedroom, so she's got another $1,300 coming in per month on this property. Same type of idea now. She's got basically the tenants, that her roommates are paying for her down payment for the next property. So moving forward, she never has to come up with down payment again. As long as she keeps moving into a house and getting 2 roommates, the roommates will probably pay for her down payment in the future, and as the cash flow from her other properties increases, that becomes passive. Does that make sense? It's kind of like a way that it really works in the real world, someone who's doing it. Okay, either way, her properties provide the down payment for her next Nomad purchases. Why is this important? Let's take a look at a slide. So when I teach the normal Nomad class, I go into a lot of detail about how much money you need to come up with, and I talk about how if you're really not putting 20% down on the property, you may be financing your down payment by having a little bit of negative cash flow, and I go into a lot of detail on that. I'm not going to reteach that class tonight, but this is one of the key slides. And in this slide, I show you how much you need in down payment each year and how much you need to cover a negative cash flow, which really gets covered by depreciation, but I'm not going to go there tonight because it actually offsets. But basically, if you didn't have depreciation, the tax benefits, you'd have to pay for this negative cash flow on the properties for not putting 20% down. And this is the amount of down payment you need in each one of the years in order to buy your properties and kind of continue with Nomad. Okay? Now, what's interesting about this particular client that was doing this right here is now she no longer needs to do this, right? She had to come up with this first down payment. She may have had to come up with the second one, but she's getting some help from the duplex side. But now, after that, her roommates are paying this. And so each year, the roommates are paying the next one. She no longer needs to come up with these big chunks for down payment. So instead of having to come up with, this is the total of the down payments, if we added them up, in order to do the entire Nomad model, buying 10 properties over 10 years, we basically need about $160-something thousand. But she no longer needs to do it from right about here. So once she gets to here, this is done. You know, we talk about in some of the classes, the other way to do this and get someone else to pay for it is to use lease options. And so we talked about that before, but this is the second way to do it. You get a house hack, you get roommates for it, and your roommates now pay for this. So you no longer need to come up with this additional money. It's a big point. Does everyone get that? Okay, cool. So no longer do you need, it's not like I need $165,000 over 10 years in order to do $12 million in real estate by the time I'm whatever 40 years in the future is for you. Now it's, I probably need to scrounge up 1, maybe 2 down payments. And by the way, these can be nothing down, or 1% down, 3% down for the next one, 3% down for the next one. I'm modeling it with 5% down. You could do a USDA loan. If you have VA benefits, you can do VA. Or you can do 1% conventional, or 3% conventional, 3% conventional, and then 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Okay? So it's kind of a powerful model. All right, so Nomad loan basics. So if you are starting with this, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, how do I want to structure loans for this? This is what I would recommend for most people. Preferred order. If you can get VA, if anyone has veteran benefits and you can get VA and you can find a duplex, triplex, or fourplex in our marketplace where the numbers make sense, in my opinion, you should probably start there. So if you can find a duplex, triplex, or fourplex and get a nothing down loan in order to buy that, that's this multifamily VA. You do that. If it so happens to be that you have enough VA benefits where you can buy 2 of these, you move into a duplex or a triplex or a fourplex, a year later you can move into a duplex, triplex, or fourplex again because you have enough benefits to do it, you can buy 2 with your VA loan. Highly unusual in our market because most of the time you're going to use up your whole benefit. Okay? So that's my preferred step 1. If you don't have VA benefits, if you can't get them, the next best thing in my mind is use FHA. You can have 1 FHA loan at a time, but there's some exceptions, but they're really uncommon. You can have 1 FHA loan at a time. You could buy a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. You put 3.5% down, and you could buy one of those. So if you can't do VA, my next best thing in my mind is multifamily FHA. So go find a duplex, triplex, or fourplex you can buy with FHA. Okay? Then after that, you do conventional. Now, some people are going to go do something like this. They're going to go move into a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. They're going to live there for a year or 2 or 3. Our market's going to be insane. It's going to go up 10% a year for the next 3 years, and you're going to have a ton of equity. And what you might decide to do at that point is refinance out of your FHA loan into a conventional loan to free up your FHA loan so you can do it again with another multifamily. Okay? But that's a rather unusual sort of advanced strategy. Okay? But I mentioned it here. And remember, these are all owner-occupant financing. You have to move in. If you don't want to move in, we're just talking about traditional real estate investing. It's not Nomad, it's not house hacking. Okay? Basically, you're just buying properties like Brian was talking about in the back. Basically actually both Brians were talking about that. Oh no, Brendan and Brian were talking about that. Basically, they're saying just put 20% or 25% down or 15% down, and you buy the property. You don't have to move in. You don't have to deal with all this nonsense. But if you want to minimize your down payment and you're willing to move in, this is a way to really get your down payment down, okay, and acquire lots of properties. So can you just say, so you're thinking to yourself, okay, I'm a pretty smart guy or girl. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go tell the lender I'm going to move in. In fact, I might even move in for a week. But you know something? What I'm going to do is I'm then going to go buy my next property, and I'm going to tell them I'm going to move into that one. What is that called? When you actually tell a lender you're going to go and move into a property, and you don't keep your agreement with the lender, the form you sign that says you're going to move in there for a year. What do they call that? Loan fraud. And you get free housing with that, actually. So basically, once you commit loan fraud, you don't have to pay for housing at all anymore. You get free food. It's like a great deal. And in fact, Brian has an old tenant who had loan fraud. Well, you thought I was going to say that you committed loan fraud? You did have a tenant that went to prison or jail for loan fraud, right?
Yeah, I have a former tenant who was in prison for 4 years for loan fraud.
It is no joke. Don't do it. So to answer your question, can you just say you're going to live there and then not move in? No, you cannot. You have to move in. It's a requirement of the plan. Don't mess with the plan. So the basic idea is multifamily first, then move on to single family. Yeah. What's
So what if you moved in for a year?
Yep.
And you meet all the requirements?
Yep.
Can you use another FHA?
No, you can only have 1 FHA at a time, so you'd have to get rid of your FHA benefit. There's some really weird exceptions, like if you move out of the area or you inherit one or something like that. But once you actually do your FHA, you need to wait to get rid of it, refinance out into conventional in order to be able to use that FHA benefit again.
But that's not necessarily difficult, right?
No.
Finance out.
You can, but you have to wait a couple of years. So you're going to be on like property 3 or 4 or 5, unless you bought it significantly undervalued, because the conventional, in order to get a duplex, triplex, and fourplex, you're going to do like 25% equity, 75% loan to value to refi out. So that's why it's hard. Yeah.
I thought the rule was that you could move 60 miles away, though, too.
You can.
We have the plan that you
We
can
can.
go 61 miles.
We can. Yes. There is some weird like moving long distance like Nomad model, which we haven't designed yet. We haven't built that. It is borderline. It's definitely gray.
Borderline prison.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So can you put like a family member in that property and not be considered a loan fraud?
You need to live there. You need to live there if you're getting the property. Otherwise, it's a non-owner occupant loan. Like if you're putting your mom there, you're not living there. So mom's living there, you have to get an investment property. Now, if mom got the loan, that's a different story.
Or if mom moves in with you.
Yeah, but if mom moves in with you, you're still moved in. Your mom can move in. There's not a problem with that. Yeah, but you can't just have mom move in and you not move in. Yeah.
And in your examples you gave,
Yeah.
moving out, Are you saying that they actually convert to conventional every time you move down?
No, you keep whatever loan you have. You can refinance later, but it is not required. The normal Nomad model has you get one loan and just keep that loan until it's paid off. So you don't do any refinancing.
So how can you move to another one if you don't?
Just keep it. You can get 10 loans.
You use conventional.
Yep.
Okay, you're using conventional.
Yes. Yeah. So the preferred order is, if you can do these, you do the VA one first, which if you don't have that, you're going to move on to FHA. You do one FHA loan. If you can't do that, then you're going to do conventional. And you can do conventional for 10 loans.
Okay.
Yep. And then even after conventional, there's other loans. They're just not ideal. They're portfolio loans.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can do more than 10.
But you're not putting 20% down on the conventional.
No.
You're putting, okay.
So conventional, I'm glad you asked. So conventional, let's say you're not doing any VA or any FHA. The conventional loan thing looks like this. You can do 1% for the first one, 3% for the next two, and then it's 5% through number 10. Okay? So basically you can do 1% down for your first property that you buy, 3% for second and third one, and then 5% for these. Now when I model it, I usually model 5% all the way through. Okay?
And even if you're using conventional, if you put less than 20% down, you have to live in it.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Conventional, you're required to live in it to get these down payments. The reason that Nomad works is because you're moving into the properties. If you don't want to move in, the alternative is this. 15%, all the way through number 10, 15%. That's the down payment. And that's the minimum. Used to be 20. So this is what it used to look like. 20%, all the way up to 25%. And this is number 4. And then it was 25% all the way through to number 10. That's how it used to be. Yeah, this is single family. For multifamily, duplex, triplex, fourplex, add 5% to all these. That's what it used to be.
So if that's single family home, if you're going to do multifamily with the way it used to be, it's 25 and then 30.
Yep, this is single family homes. This is the old way, which is no longer valid. Okay, and then if you're doing multi, it used to be plus 5% to all these. Now for the multi, I think it's 25% for all of them. Yes. There is PMI for the 15%. Yeah. Yep. Okay. When you do 20%, you don't have PMI, and you have to have really good credit to do the 15 down. Yep.
Is the PMI life of the loan on the 15%?
No, conventional goes away after you get to whatever it is. Yeah, but FHA has life of the loan PMI, so that's one of the reasons why you may want to refinance out. Yep. Okay. Any other questions about financing? All right, good. So, so here's this. The basic idea is, if you can start with multifamily, start with multifamily. However, what if you're in a market where it's really hard to find multifamily, or it's really hard to get your offer accepted, and you're not able to find multifamily? Should you wait a year, 2 years, 3 years until that right duplex finally comes along and you're able to buy it? What do you think? No, I think that you kind of look for multifamily and you give preferential treatment to those, but basically you should almost from the get-go look at single family homes too. And whichever one comes along first that meets your needs, I think you go with that. Because it's better to start than it is to wait for the right multifamily to come along, in my opinion. Okay? All right.
That slide, James, like the number of triplexes and fourplexes that are selling in recent years is like
Really small. Totally small. And it's hard to get FHA loans accepted on those, or VA loans, because you've got someone else coming in who's willing to put a larger down payment. FHA and VA loans both require a little bit harsher appraiser. The appraisal process is a little bit more strict because they actually do health and safety issues as part of the appraisal. And they can come back and say the lender requires certain repairs, otherwise we're not doing the loan. And so basically if you have a conventional financing person or FHA, VA, and they're identical offers, almost everyone's going to pick the conventional. The exception I've seen is there's some type of emotional appeal to some people that served in the military and they have a veteran coming in who's trying to use their VA loan. They may voluntarily say, I would like to actually help the veteran, and so I'll accept the veteran's offer and I'll do that. That's the exception I've seen, okay? Which is uncommon, because you need to have somebody who is sympathetic, so sympathetic that they're willing to possibly give up some money to accept a loan from a VA person, okay? All right, so if possible, but then retreat to single family homes if you can't find them, then single family homes for the remainder. So we do this for the first however many you can get. In most cases, it's only going to be one, unless you're doing VA. And then you could do, if you can do VA and do 1 or 2 properties with VA, and then you could do your FHA, it's possible you could do like 3 multifamilies. That would be like the most exceptional, best case scenario for somebody. Rarely ever happens. All right, roommates count as landlord experience and can make it easier to qualify for your second loan. So one of the things that the lender is going to look for is they're going to say to you, do you have landlord experience, so that they can count rent on your property that you're leaving to qualify you for your next loan. If you have a roommate, that counts. If you have a regular lease with your roommate and you could document that you have landlord experience, that's a plus for you leaving the last house. So if you're willing to do house hacking, it gives you a little edge up. If you don't have that experience, then they're going to need you to cover the cost of the property that you're leaving, or be able to have a special rent appraisal done and use only a certain percentage of the rent from the previous property. Okay? So it helps you that way. Plus, it could help you if you have roommates using that income to qualify for the next property too. Okay?
One of the things about that is to make sure that you're actually claiming that rental with your roommates on your tax.
Yeah. So this whole model assumes that you're actually being honest on your tax return. Okay? It's really hard to do this if you're lying on your tax return for a lot of reasons. You have to actually document your income. You know, don't write off too many things if you have a small business and you're self-employed. Really do your taxes right. Okay? Or go meet with your lender and find out, listen, I could take up to this much in my deductions, but maybe your lender says, hey, listen, you'll never qualify for a loan if you take that much. Scale it back a little bit to qualify.
And one of the questions that these portfolio lenders asked me was, how much experience do you have, especially like larger commercial lenders? And they don't necessarily care. They would count experience as long as you were qualified, well qualified otherwise. Like if you were like, oh, I've been around real estate because my dad was a realtor for 40 years and so he had rental properties. They're like, oh, that counts, and they would check the box. So be as open and forthcoming as you can with what your real estate experience actually is, right? I've been going to NCRAG for 3 years.
I come to 50 classes a year on real estate for 3 years, yeah.
That actually might help.
That might actually help, you're right.
So there's another reason to come to NCRAG.
There you go. In case you didn't have enough.
What type of documents do they require? Do you have just a lease, or do you have to have a separate
Lease, and also ideally on your tax return.
and just on?
Yep, they'd like to see that you're reporting that income and that you're renting out the 2 units and that you're depreciating that part of the property probably too helps.
Do they
Yeah.
need to have a certain amount of minimum rent? Like,
I don't know what their criteria is. I've not heard a certain minimum amount, but yeah. I talk to the lender because the lender's got their guidelines that they have to hit. And it may be slightly different for different loan programs too.
it is different. I remember it changed for VA where it was like a duplex. And they
Oh, I do remember that.
with
Yes.
being able to count the other side's rent because they didn't technically have enough landlord experience.
Yes.
For the VA requirements.
I will also tell you that some lenders put additional overlays. So the actual regulation to where they're selling the loan to may say X, but they may say, listen, we actually are going to say you need to have 2X on your particular thing because that's our standard. It's our overlay on what the actual loan that we're selling is. So you could go to 2 different lenders. One has a 2X overlay. The other one has a just, I'm going to pass through whatever the actual regulations are to where we're selling the loan to and actually get it to work that way. So be careful. 2 different lenders could have 2 different criteria for the same loan program.
And this is another great reason why you should talk to your lenders before you start.
Oh, agreed. Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. Yeah, we have a whole 2-hour class on financing too. Okay. Occupancy limits. So if you're going to go thinking, okay, I'll just go buy an 8-bedroom property and I'll go rent out 7 of the bedrooms and I'll live in a $2 million house with 8 bedrooms and I'll just live it up, right? So there are occupancy limits. It limits the number of people that can be living in a property. It is city specific in our area. So Fort Collins has occupancy limits. Windsor does and Greeley does. The other cities, I am not aware of them. It doesn't mean that they don't have them. But if you are in Fort Collins, in Greeley, or Windsor, there are limits on how many people you can have in a given property. This counts for when you're trying to rent a property. It counts even if you're not renting the property. If you have like extended family living in there, we're going to talk about that. It also counts if you are house hacking or if you're doing straight rentals. Okay? So let's take a look at what they are. Fort Collins has what's called the U+2 law, which we'll talk about. Greeley has a kind of a definition of a family, and I'll show you more on that. And then Windsor, because I don't have a separate slide for it, it's 1 person per studio unit and 1 person per bedroom plus 1 for larger units.
It's actually not what it is.
That's what the actual ordinance says from 2009.
I talked to him. I'm trying to look it up, but that's not. It's different than that. It's like you can't have more than. It's almost like you family or a family plus two or something like that. I'll look it up, but I
Okay.
talked to him, and then I asked him a specific situation, which was I have two tenants who are not married. They both have one child who the children aren't even there full time. And so I said, it's probably on average they have one child there together, and they wanted to have one more roommate in a 4-bedroom house. And they said that would violate the ordinance because it's 4 people and you can't have more than that. So they're not related. 4 people is the max in Windsor. So
That's interesting. Yeah, so this is what I found when I looked up the ordinance, but Brian has another one. So, all right, so let's talk about Fort Collins. So this is a quote from the Fort Collins website. I want to read it to you because it's actually pretty interesting to think about what is in violation and what's not in violation. So according to Fort Collins, this is from their website, fortcollins.gov. This is the link there. Occupancy in a residential dwelling unit, single family, duplex, and multifamily is restricted to, bullet point 1, one family as defined below, section 5.1.2, and not more than one additional person. So a family plus 1. Or one adult and their dependents, if any, a second adult and their dependents, if any, and not more than one additional person. That's Fort Collins. So what does this mean exactly? Some examples from Fort Collins' website. So to quote Fort Collins' definition of a family, according to the city of Fort Collins, is family shall mean any number of persons who are all related by blood, marriage, adoption, guardianship, or other duly authorized custodial relationship, and who live together as a single housekeeping unit and share common living, sleeping, cooking, and eating facilities. The occupancy limits are further defined in the Land Use Code 3.8.16. So what is okay? So now you know what the definition of family is. You kind of know what the kind of family unit plus one person. What does it actually mean? Let's take a look at some examples. So a family of any size and configuration. So me, Tammy, our 7 kids, 2 grandkids, a family of any size and configuration, that's apparently okay. Okay? A family of any size and configuration and their nanny. So we decided to bring Brian in and said, Brian, I want you to actually parent my kids, raise them for me because I'm not good at parenting. Would you please raise them? That's okay according to City of Fort Collins. You could do that. Brian can come in and do that. You only do what? Interventions, okay. A family of any size and configuration and an exchange student. So you want to have a visiting exchange student come in? That's totally fine. 2 single parents, their kids, and a friend. That is also okay. 2 siblings and 1 friend. I'm reading this from the website.
2 single parents that are...
This is actually quoted from the website.
It doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make any difference.
I find this really confusing.
This is actually copy and pasted from the website. I didn't make this up. It is right. It's the city's website. It has they interpret it. Okay? So according to Fort Collins. Fort Collins. Go look on the Fort Collins website. Here. There's a link. It's right there. All right. 2 single parents, their kids, and a friend. That's okay.
Pull up the document. Do you have the text from the document?
I don't. This is where I got the information from.
Because that's the actual rules.
But this is what the city posts as what's okay.
People make mistakes.
I'm telling you it's on the website. 2 single parents, their kids, and a friend. That's okay. 2 siblings and one friend. So Brian and I, brothers, not really, but Brian and I are brothers. We basically do that, and we could have our friend Royce come and live with us. That would be okay.
Right, so those 2 lines contradict.
Right,
That's why it's wrong.
right.
Call him tomorrow.
I'm not
2 married couples as long as familial relationship exists linking the 2 couples.
Yes, and that one is totally true. Because you can't have, they talked, like I asked, it's weird, you can't have 2 married couples, right, living, it's only 4 people, but you have a family of 10.
Okay, wait. I'm getting to the what's not allowed next. That's the next slide. Ready? This is what's not allowed. So according to Fort Collins, 2 couples, married or not, with no familiar relationship linking couple A to couple B. That's not okay. 2 siblings and there are 2 or more friends. So Brian and I happen to be brothers. We live together. We bring in our friend Royce and our friend Brendan, and we all live together in a unit. That's not okay according to the City of Fort Collins. This is crazy, right? A family of any size, a caretaker, and an exchange student. That does not work either. I'm reading from the website. It's on there. I didn't make this up. Oh, this is a great question. So enforcing. We're going to get there in a second. Important note. Anyone who spends more than 30 nights in a dwelling in a 12-month period counts as an occupant. So if your parents come over and spend 2 weeks with you, go home for 6 months, come back and spend 2 more weeks with you, guess what? Your parents were considered occupants for that. If your cousin comes or your best friend comes from out of state and crashes at your place for 2 weeks at a time, 3 times a year, that is an occupant. Okay? So frequent guests could be considered occupants according to the city. If your girlfriend, if you're like dating your girlfriend and every other night you guys switch for places where you're staying to be fair to the other house, that actually would count as an occupant.
Can you be an occupant in more than one house then?
Yeah,
Weird.
you can. You can. Yeah.
Can you go back?
Yeah.
No, the middle one?
This one?
That one. So that one makes sense. So it says the actual maximum permissible occupancy, right? 2 adults and their dependents and not more than 1 additional person. So 2 single parents, their kids, and a friend makes sense.
Okay.
Right?
So it doesn't. So you're giving it in to me? Okay. I actually pulled this from the website. I didn't make this up, guys.
It makes
Okay.
sense that way.
Okay. I'm just telling you what it says. All right. So basically, another side note about this occupancy thing. You are, and I will get to what happens if they don't do it. So you are required whenever you buy a house or sell a house to fill out one of these forms to have people acknowledge what the laws are for the city of Fort Collins. And every time you rent the property, you need one of these forms as well. And if you don't have one, it's a big deal. Yeah.
So hold on.
It's a different form for my
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that like if you buy a house?
Yep.
With 4 bedrooms.
Yep.
Right? And you rent out 4 rooms.
Yep.
So you
Can't do that. Not Fort Collins.
Has to fall inside these.
But I bet you've seen
I
that
mean,
before.
Yep. It's crazy. It's
But you were just talking about having a roommate that
totally. But this is Fort Collins, specific city. You want to do this in Loveland? Go ahead.
Or if you're in a fourplex.
Yeah.
If you're in a 4-plex, that's different.
Fourplex, yeah, because each one's its own housing unit. So you could have like 3 different people in the 3 different units, and then you could have 1 roommate in your unit with 2 bedrooms. That's totally okay.
And for clarity, there are some houses in Fort Collins that have been grandfathered in.
That's true.
You can have more than this disclosure limit.
Yes.
And there are certain zones in Fort Collins that are not grandfathered in, where you can call the city up and request that they allow basically 1 additional person on top of all the examples.
Yep.
But the zones are where you want it to happen. It's not zoned for that.
Yeah.
Basically, is the easy way to say it.
Yeah. Okay, so you need one of these, a variation of this. There's one for lease. The one I'm showing you is the one for sale. But you need a form like this whenever you sell a property or buy a property and whenever you lease it. You must keep a copy and provide a copy to the city upon request. So here it is. It is required that you retain this form. It's right on the form itself. City Code Section 5.265C requires that any person selling or leasing a dwelling unit shall forthwith provide all purchasers, lessees, or subleasees of such unit with written disclosure statement on a form provided by the city specifying the maximum permissible occupancy of such unit under Section 3.8.16 of the Land Code Use. So you have to, according to city code, provide this.
So the other super important thing to note for the presentation when you do this next time
Yep.
is that on the rental form,
Yep.
it actually says the following. Actual signatures are required on the form. Start. It is required this form be verified by electronic means or notarized, attached to your lease, and a copy kept. And they accept email as an electronic form. So when you have this signed, email it to your tenant and keep a copy of that email with it attached to your lease. That counts.
Okay, so just because I want to make sure it's on mic. So when I go do this again, I need to go read the lease version of the form and add in the section in there about how it has to be electronic or notarized.
Yep.
Okay.
You want to make sure they're emailing it to you.
Got it. We'll make sure we add that they're emailing it
If
to
you're
us.
having a rental and you haven't emailed to your tenants, go home and email it to them.
Yeah. Otherwise, because here's the thing, right? What's the violation? Is this like a, oh, don't do this anymore, James, you've been a bad boy, kind of thing? No, this has some teeth. Let's find out. What happens if you don't comply? This is quoted from the website as well. So upon receipt of a complaint, staff begins an investigation. So imagine this. You've got 4 people living in your 4-bedroom property. The next door neighbor's like, these damn kids, they've got 4 different cars parked out front. I'm tired of not being able to park in front of my own house. I'm going to call and report them. Happened to Anna. Okay? So someone calls up anonymously.
It was the girlfriend.
The girlfriend, whatever it is, decides to do this. And so there's a complaint. Staff begins an investigation. Staff may contact the owner/property manager and request a copy of a signed occupancy disclosure form. Where's your form? I'd like to see it. These forms have been required since December 2005, and there is a potential, highlighted for me, $1,000 fine for not having one. If you don't have the form, it's $1,000. If you don't have the form, it's $1,000. If the investigation procedures produces reasonable cause to suspect over-occupancy, a city inspector gives notice to all tenants, the landlord, and the property manager stating they may receive citations. They're going to let you know, but wait. A reasonable amount of time will be given to correct the over-occupancy and come into compliance. A citation may be issued immediately or any time during the process. If a citation is issued, correcting the situation does not relieve any of the parties of the potential fine. They can still fine you, even if you say, okay, I won't do it anymore, we're going to remove one person. The penalty can be up to $1,000 per person per day the house is overoccupied.
That's per person overoccupied?
That's how I read it.
Not like
4 people in there and you're yeah. I think it's actually per person that's over there. That's how I interpret it. So somebody actually says, oh, it's going to take me a month to get out, that's 30 grand. Non-trivial. Don't mess around with this stuff.
So
Okay?
James, what happens if I have a place that's conforming and suddenly someone moves in that I didn't know about?
I think it's your fault and the tenants there too. I think it's both.
But this is another reason why you should
Oh, you have to look at your,
be aware.
yeah, you have to know who's living in your property.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, as such, this is a quote from them. As such, prompt compliance is encouraged because we're going to charge you $1,000 a day per person. Okay? So here's the, that was 4 columns.
One thing to add about that, because that says upon receipt of a complaint. I know that there have been articles in the paper in the past couple of years that the city of Fort Collins has started to
Actively pursue.
yeah, like preemptively patrol neighborhoods that are known offenders, and who knows what that list is or what it looks like over time. I
Yep.
mean, a lot of them is obviously the neighborhoods right around campus where there tend to be a lot of student rentals. So that's not necessarily complaint-based anymore.
Yep.
Because I think it used to be the assumption that if you kind of laid low and kept your tenants under check, you wouldn't get a complaint. But now it's, they're driving around, looking around.
Yeah. And this is a full,
The thing is that there are 2 full-time people.
I was going to say that.
It is to drive around and find this.
Yeah.
Like the cop waiting by the stop sign that everybody rolls through.
Yeah.
Trying to make their quota.
Ticket.
Yeah.
Hey, you shouldn't violate this rule, but they're looking for things where it's 6 cars parked out front of a house, and the reason they're doing this is that the houses and the infrastructure wasn't built to sustain a 3-bedroom house is not meant to have 7 people in it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe with a family, yes, but
That makes no sense.
Let's see where
7 related people it can support, but 7 unrelated people, that cannot support it. Infrastructure is not there to support that.
it's the same DNA going down the drain. There's much wear on the pipe.
All right, who knows? All right, so that was 4 Collins. What about G-Town? Yeah, Pamela.
How about city occupancy? It doesn't matter if you're in or out of city limits.
If you're out of city limits, it doesn't matter because there's no occupancy limit. There's only occupancy limits in the city of Fort Collins.
That's not
You
true.
could be in
There's
that.
U+3 in unincorporated Fort Collins.
Really?
Yeah, remember the triplex we looked at? And
So it's county-based?
Yeah. There was
So there's a county, apparently there's a county rule I was not aware of.
there's a different one.
Yeah.
Instead of
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
So
do
be
your
careful.
research. Call the city planning and ask them.
Yeah, if you think you're gonna, if you think you're going to like maximize your income by just maximizing bedrooms, stuff like that, it's really hard to make this work. You need to do it in specific cities, and Loveland could come along and just implement something too. They could change it. So
As far as being outside of city limits, there's certain areas that could be annexed in the future. You can call up and they can tell you if it's like on their, I don't remember the name for it, but they're kind of planning area. Because they're definitely pockets like places that are surrounded by actual city Fort Collins, and they are somehow not city Fort Collins, even though you think they could be, and they could be annexed in the future. So you might be subject to the stricter requirements.
U+3 was way up north. Like north of Vine, like there's some stuff up there that's U+3 that you think would be U+2, but it's U+3, so it's not as bad.
it's outside city limits. Okay. All right, so here's what Greeley is. This is the web address where I got this from Greeley. Family for the purpose of housing occupancy within city zoning codes is defined as one of the following. one person living alone, that could be a family, any number of persons related by blood, marriage, or adoption, that's considered a family, or up to 2 unrelated persons and their blood relatives, excluding any persons related only by marriage. You can interpret that however you want. I'm just telling you what they are. So figure that out. Here's another interesting thing that Greeley points out, and that is, and I think it applies everywhere else too, covenants within the neighborhood, the HOA itself, can be more restrictive than the rules enforced by the city. So your HOA may say, you plus 2, forget about it. It's you plus 1. Okay?
I've not heard of HOA.
Yeah, they can though.
I've heard of HOAs restricting how many roommates you can have. That has come up, and it turns out the HOA then came back and said they weren't going to enforce anything stricter than
Oh, when they removed it.
Collins, and then they
Their attorney removed it.
submit a letter to remove it, but
I do remember that.
something weird in the HOA doc, so
Yeah.
freedom.
Okay, the city does not have a list of such additional restrictions, nor will it enforce private covenants. So the city's not going to go and say, your HOA says this, so we're going to enforce that. Please check with your HOA regarding these restrictions. That was a little note. So Fort Collins.
Before you go on,
Yeah.
the Windsor one,
Yep.
or at least a part of it is, any unrelated group of persons consisting of 1, not more than 4 persons, or 2, not more than 2 unrelated adults and their related children, if any. So
Okay.
4 is the max in Windsor, or basically the same thing you have up there, which is 2 unrelated adults and their related children.
Okay, if you would email that to me, I'll add it to the presentation for next time. Thank you. All right. So Fort Collins level and median rents. So I was trying to find like rent per bedroom. I couldn't find a lot of good data on it, but I did have this, which came up in the Colorado Inn very recently, like a week or so ago. I emailed it out to NCRAIG. Is there anyone who's not getting emails from NCRAIG? Everyone's getting them? Okay, good. So I emailed this out like a week or so ago, but I wanted to point out a couple things about it because I didn't comment on it. This is from the apartment survey, Colorado multifamily vacancy rental survey. So by definition, it's multifamily stuff, okay? It's like big apartment buildings. And it's from June 2017, which was the last time they actually did their polling. But an efficiency apartment in Fort Collins, like a open room, which has like the sink and kitchen and maybe a closed bathroom, but it's like no like separate bedrooms and stuff. The rent for that is $844 per month, which I found crazy. A one-bedroom apartment is renting for, on median, so half of the ones are above this, half of them are below this, in the Fort Collins Loveland area, $1,219 per month, which I also found very high. 2-bedroom, 1-bath, so basically you go to a 2-bedroom from a 1-bedroom, you only get an extra $30 or so for the extra bedroom on median. Now I'm sure there are ones where you get more than that, but really the interesting thing is it's only a $30 differential between that, and according to the survey. Here was the one that I found very interesting. 2-bedroom, 1-bath was $1,249. 2-bedroom, 2-bath, $1,434. Squint really hard, you're almost getting $200 more per month for an extra bathroom, which I found insane. So when you're out searching for properties, is it worth buying the property that has the extra bathroom? Are you going to get extra rent to support that? Data suggests you are.
Do you know if that's counting a half bath?
I don't know.
Because the other thing that I think about when I see 2-bed, 2-bath being that much more is that it's newer and it might be the 1.5 and it might be townhome style and like you got a lot more of those.
Might be.
More square footage.
It might be that.
That's what's really going on.
That's like a townhome, right? That would have more square footage, that half bath down,
Maybe, but if you're able to go and find houses and you're like, I'm going to bump it up and do a search for 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, then maybe even in your search that makes a difference. So I think it's just good to think about. The interesting thing here too about 2-bedroom to 3-bedroom, they don't differentiate between bathrooms, $1,679. So they're getting almost $250 more for the extra bedroom. Here's the interesting thing. If you were going to house hack, if you were going to actually bring in a roommate and rent, how much rent could you get for a bedroom? Yeah, I think easily $500. I think probably pushing $600 in most cases. Okay? How much does an extra bedroom cost? Like if you were going to go buy new construction and you had a choice between a 3-bedroom floor plan and a 4-bedroom floor plan, what does it typically cost extra for a bedroom? What's that? 30,000? 10 to 20. I know for a fact there's a builder that we bought houses from that they charge 10. So $10,000 for the extra bedroom. Is it worth getting the extra bedroom then? Well, let's think about this. How much does it cost you to finance $10,000? You're going to go get a loan and you're going to finance $10,000 more to get the extra bedroom. How much does it cost extra to finance it? About $50. $50 per $10,000 that you borrow per month is what it costs. So think about this. If you're house hacking, is it worth paying the extra $10,000 to get an extra bedroom, provided the laws allow you to do this, to put another roommate in there where you're making $600 a month and you're only paying $50? Probably. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the sort of this number, right? The 3 to 4 one. Yeah. Now, what if, where was I going with this? Yes, 2 to 3 and 3 to 4, I think those are the cases. You start getting over that, I'm not so sure you start getting those. Oh, I know where I was going. What's that? It does. Agreed. Yeah. So here's the interesting one that I was going to point out. The 2-bedroom to the 3-bedroom is a $200 or so differential, $250 differential. So is it worth doing the extra $50 there per month in order to get an extra $250, even if you're just renting it? And in most cases, I think that's true too. So the argument is the renter clientele is probably a bigger pool of people if you have a 3-bedroom. The other side of this, though, is the additional wear and tear you have on a property. You have a 4-bedroom property where they have 3 kids and 2 adults living there, is a lot different wear and maintenance on a property than a 2-bedroom property where you have 2 college-age graduate students living in. Okay.
The 3 bedrooms, though, draw so many different people, right? Professional couples, you know, one professional and another couple, and, you know, you get the kids too, but you also get people that just want an extra guest room or an office. Or,
right.
So I think the 3-bedroom evens out. The 4-bedroom is probably a little more weird.
Yeah, and we have weird internal data that suggests do the 4.
From a rent perspective.
Right, from a rent perspective. Yeah.
Was there any data on the presence of a garage as well?
They didn't break it down because these are apartments.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure there's a lot of them with garages and stuff like that.
2-bedroom, 2 baths, I'll have garage.
Maybe. That's possible too. All right, so we talk about what does a roommate typically pay. We kind of came up with a number, sort of $500, $600. I think in some cases it's actually more than that. I think you can make some cases where it's a little bit less than that. But I think $500 is actually a pretty good going bottom line rate for a bedroom for most cases. $1,200 for the bedroom Boulder? In fact, there's a corollary. Brendan, isn't there a corollary where we have like a single efficiency bedroom sort of thing on the very low end of the market that we know some rent numbers for?
Yeah.
What is like the low end of the market there for that?
It's like 700.
So 700 for like a studio and absolutely entry level. You probably are not finding less expensive stuff, right? Yeah. So that's kind of like a low end number for you. So basically we had a discussion about that. Raising rent a la cash flow explosion. So you could say rent is $500 a bedroom. If you want access to the Wi-Fi, it's an extra $25 a month or whatever you're doing. If you actually plan to do your share utilities, you want access to the washer and dryer, it's an extra $25 a month or whatever it is. So you can actually do increasing rents to roommates to try to do that. And then the other idea is renting out the garage or storage areas separately. So you're renting out a room to somebody. Room is $500. Oh, would you like to park your car in the garage? That is an extra $50 a month. Or did you want to have half of the basement for storage? That's an extra whatever it is, because they would otherwise have to go put their storage stuff in a storage unit to do that.
And even in Greeley, where garages, property I own where the garage is like probably the smallest possible garage you could make that fits a car.
Yeah.
Not a truck, like only a car. It's like small. But they get $75 a month easy.
75 extra a month for a garage in Greeley.
Yeah, just for people that aren't even living in the unit that want storage.
Okay, so it's like almost a separate storage business.
Yeah, so when you look at that, if you've got detached garages that don't have doors into the units, you know, if they have a door into the unit, it kind of has to come with the unit in mind.
Yeah.
If you've got other garages, that's extra cash flow.
Yeah. Okay.
Even building small storage units, right?
Yeah, on the back.
Inside the basement or on the back or
Yep.
whatever, you can get $50 a month for, you know, a shed.
Agreed. Yeah, I think there's some opportunities when you start looking at properties for seeing places where you can add value like that. Okay. So when you have roommates for your house hacking stuff, or even for nomads if you're moving out, please do everyone a favor and properly screen your tenants. You do a disservice to yourself and you do a disservice to the community when you don't properly screen tenants. So we've got a whole bunch of resources here on how to screen tenants properly. Clients should use our $6,000 lease, but have it reviewed, modified by your attorney if you're going to use it for roommates. It's designed not for roommates, but I'm sure there wouldn't be much modification to do a roommate version. If it comes down to it and we really needed to do a roommate version, I probably would do that, but it's not going to be anytime soon. Also, when you're having roommates in your property, it's probably a good idea to put a lock on your bedroom door and keep a safe for your personal stuff. I think that's just a good recommendation, so plan on doing that. And then be firm and fair with your roommates. If they don't pay, evict them. I mean, it's got to be firm but fair. Your mortgage company is not letting you take payment holidays when things get tight for you, so you should be firm but fair with them. Expect them to pay on time. And then here's the question of the night. Do you tell them you're the owner or landlord? In my personal opinion, I think you do. But for asset protection reasons, people argue that you don't. They say that I'm the property manager. So I think you should tell them that you own the property, but that's my opinion. Any discussion on that? Yeah.
I have a bit of a separate question here. Last week, maybe the week before, when you did the presentation on property managers, part of the reason you hire a property manager is for liability purposes.
Sure.
Right? So the woman who did this, right, and she's bought the next property.
Yep.
She lives with roommates. What are the liability considerations here? Because you don't have a property manager
Sure.
between you and the clients.
Yeah.
With the property manager, you still want your own asset protection, right?
Right. So you've got your umbrella and everything, but this is a little different. Living with the clients, you're actually taking on some liability, I would think, here.
I think that's probably true. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some risk. You see any additional risk insurance, guy?
I would have your roommates have their own renter's insurance policy, because technically your homeowner policy or your landlord policy does not cover their personal belongings.
That's a good point.
It also gives them personal liability if their Fido goes off and bites somebody, or if their kid goes off and throws a rock through somebody's window and they get sued, something like that. So it's one more layer of protection for you.
Yeah, but there's even additional liability beyond that, right? I mean, just having tenants there and you're living with them. I mean,
Would you have a property manager do the repairs? So let's say you were going to put a window in or something like that.
I think if you have a contractor doing it who is licensed and insured, I think that's as good as a property manager, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, and for the record, like asset protection is more than just the way we talk about it is more than just an umbrella insurance. Yeah, right. It's all your okay.
Yeah.
But the extra clause that Brian just mentioned of having
It's in the lease.
is in the lease.
Yeah.
You know, whether or not you choose to enforce it, it's a benefit for them. It's like $100 a year or something thereabouts, depending on how much insurance they want. But if that liability, right, at least in my lease, it actually says you must name the landlord as an additional
Assured.
insured,
Yep.
so that if something happens liability-wise, we're going to go to that policy first and not my policy.
Yeah. There's probably extra liability there for having roommates. I can't think of what else. I mean,
The weird part is this is why I don't get into doing roommates. So some people will rent a house by roommates, right?
Sure.
And like, oh, Daryl wants to be roommate number 1, Brian wants to be roommate number 2, and Beth wants to be roommate number 3. And now these 3 don't know each other, and you put this really weird combination of people together, and something happens.
yeah, some type of dispute or.
Or way worse.
Yeah, sure.
Right? And I think that's a really weird, I would much rather have a property manager have that set of liability.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. All right, I think this is the last slide. So property selection criteria when buying. So for nomads, when we're looking for properties to buy, we're primarily looking for properties that are ultimately going to be good rental properties. And sometimes we're willing to make exceptions because we're living in the property for a year. And the example I like to use is so the man comes to Craig and decides, okay, we're going to do Nomad because I'm going to catch up for retirement. I'm going to use that as our retirement plan. The wife says, okay, I'm willing to very reluctantly go along with this. However, I have certain standards I need to buy in the house. And some of those standards are things that may not be ideal for rental properties. They need granite countertops and hardwood floors or whatever it is, right? So whatever the criteria is, sometimes I'm willing to allow those exceptions to be made because if you don't make those exceptions, you're not going to do the plan. So I'm okay with that. And it could be the vice versa. It could be the husband and the wife's the one kind of leading it. It doesn't matter. Okay, so those are the things. Often willing to make concessions since you'll live there for a year. Additional house hacking criteria, extra bedrooms and baths. Remember the rule of thumb, $10K is $50 a month in payment. So if you're going to be able to get more than that in rent, then consider that a possible improvement to your return. Separate entrances. There are some properties where they have a side thing to the basement, and they can go in there. That could be helpful. Basement suites. Mother-in-law quarters. Sometimes they have a little house out back or pool house or something like that. Opportunities for extra income like storage or parking. Airbnb setup instead of roommates. There are evolving laws and ordinances about this, so be super, super careful. But that is a way to do it. And be careful of illegal duplexes, unpermitted stoves and basements and things of that nature where you think you're buying a duplex when in fact you're not. You're buying an illegal duplex. And at some point the city could come back to you and say you have to rip out that kitchen, it's not valid. And so we will force you to change it back to a single family home. Any?
To have a stove or an oven in a basement, you actually have to get a permit.
Correct.
So be careful.
Yep.
You can't just stick a stove in your basement because you want to.
Correct. Yes.
They don't care about the fridge and the sink and all that, but it's
Right.
still
Like the
okay.
wet bar is cool,
Yeah.
but you put a stove down there, suddenly there's all sorts of requirements about heat and venting and all that.
There are efficiency units that don't have stoves. All they have are like hot pads. So there's those too.
Those also sometimes have blood on the door.
That may also be true. That may also be true.
That was so weird.
That was a weird place. I agree with you.
We were walking through, was it 16 or 8? I think it was 2 8s, right? They're all single bedroom units, and like the stoves are like a little tiny, like they're barely burners, but there's like 4, and the stove is literally like this wide. And like we're walking through one, and like there's like, looks like somebody like smushed somebody's head on a bill.
It did.
Pretty weird.
It was. Any final questions?
Well, it's dangerous.
Love is dangerous. That probably looks like an amazing deal right now, though.
I know, right?
Should have bought that too. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
All right, stick around for the class after the class. I'm going to use the restroom. Thank you all for coming. I will see you all soon.